Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yasas Abeywickrama, and I'm from Lanka BPO Academy. And this is my colleague and business partner, Darshana Ileperuma. So we'll do the presentation that we did in front of a similar panel in 2012. And this presentation itself will tell you a bit about us as well. And towards the end, if you have any questions, you could ask as well. So this is pretty much a demonstration of what we did 2 years ago as a pitch to the investors or potential investors. So we are Lanka BPO Academy. It's a training company focusing on the outsourcing industry in Sri Lanka. If you don't know much about this industry, outsourcing or BPO, business process outsourcing, means work from overseas countries, foreign countries, sent to Sri Lanka and done from this country. Say customer service, accounting, IT, finance related work done from Sri Lanka for overseas countries or overseas companies, because we can offer that service much cheaper in this country. For example, if you have heard of companies like HSBC in Rajagiri, what they do is provide customer service, accounting type services from Sri Lanka for overseas countries or companies. So what we do, Lanka BPO Academy, is provide training services for that industry. So it's a niche that we identified. There are a lot of IT training companies, IT education institutes. There are many other educational institutes in accounting and all that. But what we realized was there were no any other training companies for this sector. So it's a niche that we identified. And as entrepreneurs, we thought we'll get into this. A bit about myself. I come from the IT BPO industry. I've worked in it for about 10 years. And then thought I should do something, a business on my own related to that industry. So as an entrepreneur, I wanted to do something that I know, but in an industry that actually has an opportunity. Whereas Darshana comes from a more corporate planning type background, and he actually had an interest in education. So we actually mixed these two. I had the interest in IT BPO, and he had the interest in education. So we thought, why not IT BPO education? So that's how this idea came. And when we checked the market, there was no other player in the market. So we thought we'll start a company, which we called as Lanka BPO Academy, and came into the market. So as entrepreneurs, we kind of did that initial study if there's an opportunity existing in the market. So we came together and started Lanka BPO Academy in 2010. And the initial response from the market was good, because there was an opportunity, the niche was identified, and there were no other training companies, and the market was growing and all that. However, we actually didn't have enough capital ourselves, to do the necessary improvements to the company, the marketing, the training facilities, the trainer capabilities and all that. So we had an idea that was proven to some extent, but needed more support or cash support or capital support to take it to the next level. So that's when we came to you, the investor panel, and explained our vision, where our vision actually was not just a training company, but our vision was to empower the youth of Sri Lanka, where we offer training services in relation to customer service, accounting, overall BPO. Through that, we empower a youth so that they can get a job in this industry. So our vision was much bigger than a training company, but the implementation path is a training company. So to do this, we had looked at several products. We broke the products into different areas, some of them BPO, basic customer service accounting, but we thought the products have to be extended so that the investors are attracted towards it, because there's an extension with the money that we are going to do. In that sense, we pitched finance related qualifications, as well as IT related qualifications, as well as executive level training, corporate training as well. So that those were not there 2 years ago, but they were pitched to the investors. So with this pitch, this product list, we also presented some of these things, the things that we had done, the photos of what the training programs that we've done and how we operate and all that, because that would give the investors the model that we work on, and creates a real picture about how this company actually operates, and that makes things more connected, rather than just telling about the products. We showed what we actually do in terms of pictures and videos and all that. So these are some of those things, corporate training in hotels and all that we do. So then we have explained the opportunity that we see in this industry. So if you take the BPO industry, there's a target set from SLASCOM, which is the IT BPO industry chamber, to have 1 billion revenue from 2016. And at the moment, or 2012, the industry had about 50,000 people. And to do 1 billion rupees export revenue, the industry needed 50,000 more people. So we told the investors, look, the country needs 100,000 people, and we have 50,000 people today. And if we are to get 1 billion, we need 50,000 more new people trained for IT and BPO. And Lanka BPO Academy will play that role of training those 50,000 people, or a significant portion of it. So that's where we explained the opportunity that we see. So industry chamber, the government has set a target, a growing industry, which grows at 20% year on year. And it needs this many people. We have this many at the moment, and we will do this much. So that's the pitch we did in terms of the business opportunity and validating the market opportunity. So we are telling something that actually market needs as well. So that's I think what inventors and new entrepreneurs need to do, where you show the linkage. And then we said in terms of market, there's a massive skill gap in terms of English, communication skills, IT knowledge, and certain functional knowledge in accounting and customer service that we will give through our training. So there's a gap, and for that we will fit in. So that's kind of the opportunity and how the company would fit into that. So our opportunity is to train 50,000 or thereabouts in the next 3-4 years, and create employment opportunities for youth. And a little bit about the company, the history. We started in 2010, very small, with 8 students and only 200,000 rupees income at the end of that part financial year. By end of 2011, we had done 200 students a year, and we had 8 million in revenue. So we pitched to the investors that in 2012, we can have 600 plus students. So we have 200 at the moment. We'll do 600 with your support. And in terms of revenue, we'll do about 25 million. So we are jumping from 8 million to 25 million. So we can up the revenue 3 times. And by 2015, we'll have 2,000 plus students trained, and also 150 million in revenue. And to do this, what we need from you, the investors, is 12 million at the beginning, and that will be our initial funding to take this business from where it is at the moment to what we show you in terms of our plan. Okay, so that's the path we came from and where we want to go. And in terms of companies, we've done some trainings for these sort of companies, clients, so that kind of shows you the credibility that we've built, the trust in the market for us. And the plan is to increase the revenue from 8 million to 150 million in 5 years, and also to take the service from only Colombo to some of the regional areas as well. In 2012, we only had mostly Colombo, started a bit in Kandy, but our plan for investors is to spread this around, and also to increase the relevant qualifications. At the time we only had 1 or 2, but we wanted to increase our operations as well as the offering, and improve the quality, train upskilling, and improve the retail market as well as corporate market, and also very importantly take the business into regional areas so that we actually empower everyone in Sri Lanka, the youth in Sri Lanka, not only in Colombo but across the country. So that's the plan. And in terms of revenue, in 2012-13, with investor support, we would do 25 million, and the next year 50 million, and in 4-5 years 150 million. So that's the idea that we would present to you, the investors, and that would come from certain cluster-based geographic expansion, as well as taking lower level products into higher valued products. At the beginning we only had lower end products, but by adding higher end products we would increase the revenue base as well. So that's the go forward plan. So we have pitched the history as well as what we would do with your money as well, and also the competition. To the investor panel, there are other educational institutes in other areas, but if you take IT BPO focused, it's only us. So it's a safer domain to play in that sense. Not many people in it at the moment. And to do that, what we need from you is invest X million rupees to empower the youth and fuel the IT BPO industry in Sri Lanka. And the use of funds, we'll use these funds for national marketing as well as regional marketing in Kandy, Kurunagal, etc. And also trainer capability development, staffing, as well as center operations. So that's about it. That's some of our students. If you have any questions, the investor panel or the audience, we're happy to answer.
Thanks, Yasas. I think when you first came to us, I think your the market was not that clear. But I think over time, I think now we've kind of really delineated that well. And I think that's important for the rest of the inventors and entrepreneurs to really understand. One of the first things that investors will look at is, can you clearly show us what is the market, who is your customer, and on that presentation that was really clear. Another thing probably is going to be slightly confusing that investors want to know is how much do you need and what percentage of your company are you going to give up for that investment. So I think that is something that you need to look at your own financial model, say as mentioned before, how much control in your company are you willing to give up? Because right now you own 100% of that company. You want to give up 20%, 30%, 40%. Angel investors do not take majority of that company. We take significant minority. So you need to decide kind of what percentage of your company you're willing to give up. So one of the first questions an investor will ask you is how much and what percentage of equity are you giving up? So just as a mock, maybe I can just ask, how much and what percentage?
I think it was discussed over a period of time, Jeevan. I think we were initially discussing.
You mentioned just give them a rough idea.
A smaller stake, but eventually we went for a larger stake, but still Darshana and I, as the founders, kept the majority. LAN and the angel networks usually don't take the majority anyway, but it's good for the entrepreneurs to keep the control so that it's your business and you are involved in it in operations as well as take decisions operationally, but in consultation with the board and the investors. But as Jeevan said, it's a matter of looking at your financials and see how much you want to give up, and also in terms of your invention, how much you want to kind of own in the operation as well. In our case, we've discussed on various numbers, but eventually went for a larger but still minority stake.
Does anyone from the crowd have questions on that?
So, Yasas, I wanted to just ask you, the 12 million rupees that you need is for the first year, or how long is the money going to last you to do the expansion?
Yeah, at the time we pitched it as the first round, 12 million for 3 years or so. And we thought we could get the business across the line with that money. But if another injection comes later on, we could actually develop the business again. However, at the time of pitching in 2012, we weren't really planning for another round. We thought with this investment, we should be able to get to where we want to.
So what would you need in the first year? How much should you realistically need in the first year?
Because
the way we would like to fund this in stages, right? So we'd like to see how much you need in the first year, second year, or first 6 months, first year.
Out of the total investment, if we had, say, 60% in the first year, that would have been good. And then the remaining 40% in the second and third years would have been good. However, how it happened operationally was we almost got 100%, and then we spent it accordingly so that we know that we have this money for about 3-4 years. If another investment doesn't come for the next couple of years, we still have to do the business and growth with this money.
Another thing you haven't been clear here is who your shareholders are, existing shareholders are, and your board structure. Because from an investor's perspective, it's important for us to see who your shareholders are, current shareholders.
Yeah.
And
so currently, 2 years back, we had only 2 shareholders, Darshana and I as founders, and we owned 50% each of the business. And our idea is with you coming on board, we'll still keep a majority, but 2 of us will have equal shares. Because we started the business together and we are friends as well. So I don't want to have, say, 30% and Darshana has 20%, so it has to be an equal percentage in between us. But the remainder can be given to you for your investment.
Yasas, I actually didn't get a chance to invest in the first round, so maybe I might be interested in what are the upcoming ones. So let me ask, this might be actually a real question to get me smart about the potential next round. And I think what's really important for an entrepreneur also is to fully understand the business and to know the domain really well. You mentioned of the potential growth of 50,000. You also projected of making 150 million from 2,000 students. Am I right? From your presentation, if you go back to what it was?
Yes, yes.
What's the current spend? That seems like a 75,000 rupees a student a year is what you're anticipating, if you just do a rough average math.
Yeah. Currently, a student spends about 45,000 rupees for a 6-month program, but the same student may continue for a year or 2 years if that's a student doing a degree. So roughly 6 months, 45,000 rupees.
So that's kind of where my question would be.
But Ravindu, there are different types of programs. So if you average out, it's 45,000. But there are certain other programs where a student actually pays more.
Sure.
So it's a bit difficult to multiply 2,000 by a certain price and get the total.
And the point I'm just trying to make is, I think that's at least from a personal perspective, when investors look at it, you need a more concrete validation and kind of details to prove it. It's one thing to put it up, and I'm yet to come across any presentation that doesn't have a hockey curve kind of growth, right? It's all phenomenal growth, everything's going to be rosy. But I think that also has to be justified with a sense of realism,
sure,
right? So that you get a sense of, here's what it is. And I think, to me, what I would like to see is saying, here's the landscape today. Okay. In IT, average, there is probably 3 layers you can imagine. There is the senior people who are 10 plus years. There is the 2 to 5 years, and then there is the below or entry level, 3 segments. Each segment on average spends X, Y, Z.
Sure.
My expectation is that I'm going to be capturing X percentage of this market, and here's why my products are suited for that. And I think it seems like you're also expecting that you're going to be able to entice them to increase the average spend.
Yeah.
And if so, why do you believe that will happen?
Right.
So, I think you need a bit more of
sure,
realism and kind of specifics,
sure,
to be able to get into that.
Yeah. And also, when we went through this process, just for the benefit of the audience, in certain workshops and discussions we've had with potential investors, we went into that kind of discussion as well. Yeah. I remember we first pitched this to Jeevan and then Prajit individually, and they actually asked a lot of detailed questions. And then we came into Venture Engine and did this kind of a summarized presentation, but went back and looked at the details. Right. So if someone who has an invention and comes into the program, I think they would go through that as well to some extent. But as you say, it's better to be ready and have the details with them.
Exactly. And I just want to kind of sum up on one thing is that what also ends up is that actually fundamentally you're investing in the entrepreneur. That's what you are doing, right? I think there is a pure go, no-go based on the business financials. Like, does it make sense? Is it a growing market? Is there good potential? Even if all of those are absolutely there, from an investor perspective, you put your money down only based on gut feel and a validation of the entrepreneur. And I think and if you realize that, one way to do that is the first impression you make is very important. It's absolutely important that you come across as a confident, someone who's actually thought through and is in the business for long term. Because the investors are coming to really bank on you. They're taking a risk, right? You need to come across as a person who's very competent and confident to be able to manage the risk. Our job is to validate whether we are willing to take a risk. Your job as a person who's coming to pitch it is to say and to prove, hey, I am capable of managing risk. And one way of being able to prove that you're capable of managing risk is to have these details at the fingertips. So you might not, to your point, you might put it up on the presentation in a summarized manner, but you have to be ready with the backup data. So when someone asks the questions, like I just did, saying, hey, great, this seems too rosy, but tell me, how do you break up to being able to make 150 million from 2,000 people? You need to be able to hammer it out in a very confident, but in a, have planned it out. Too often we find investor or entrepreneurs coming and presenting, and they themselves haven't actually done that math. They're kind of wishful thinking kind of presenting, which then kind of puts you on a back foot, because then the investor also doesn't build confidence of you knowing your business well enough. So I just want to make that point.
Okay.
One of the things that you presented, I remember quite clearly, was your customer profile and validation from existing customers. I'm talking about students, especially to inventors and people coming up with inventions. What's the problem you're solving, and for who is it? Who is that customer profile? Yasas had identified a market opportunity, which was a gap in the market. There was nobody training specifically for the BPO industry, and he'd found you had a certification process as well, which was validated by external bodies. But he had also spoken to students and had validation, and maybe you could just highlight that a little bit of what.
Yeah. Just like the pictures that we showed, we also had videos of real students showing what this training did to them and the employment opportunities that created after going through the program. So that kind of showed the investors that this is actually real and they are already doing it. And we are not only showing a thing that will happen in the future, but it's already happening. So in that sense, we've actually spoken to students, taken their testimonials, the videos and all that, and in different forums with investors, we've shown them that, and that actually helped in building the confidence. At one point, the investors would come and do a due diligence in terms of checking the reality, but at the same time, in the initial phase, you need to build the confidence and trust as well. So auditors and that sort of people would come later on and check the reality and the validity. But as entrepreneurs, we need to build the trust at early stages. And to Mafasa's point, we actually did that, taking examples or samples from our existing market.
Yes, just to take from where Mafaz stopped, I was don't know about much of this business. I was not involved in the angels at that time. But just purely from looking at an investor even today, on your presentation, you talked about this training. Who gives the accreditation? What kind of now? Because you see, you get a lot of people having these IT training institutes, and when you interview people, they say, "Sir, I have been IT trained and come with some kind of a certificate." How valid is your certificate, or who accepts it? And is it something that is internationally recognized? Is it something that's locally recognized? That's one question that I have. And the other thing is, who exactly is your customer? Are you targeting individuals who come and train with you? Because in one slide you showed some corporates as well. So is it that you are pitching and working with corporates, or is it more individuals who come and get trained by you and then join these corporates?
Sure. So to answer your second question first, we have two markets. One is the retail market, the second is corporate market. So retail market, we take an entry-level student and then train them and then help them get employed in the BPO industry. The second market is the corporate market. That is mostly IT BPO, but outside IT BPO as well, if someone needs a customer service, which comes from BPO speciality, we could do that training. Say, for example, some of the banks are our clients because we train them on customer service. So we are pitching two segments to you, retail market as well as corporate market. In the retail market, our customer is a student who is 16 years up to 22 years of age. In the corporate market, it's someone who's already employed in either entry level up to middle level. We are not touching the very senior level at the moment. So that's in terms of our market segments. In terms of the product, we actually have 4 certification providers. For entry-level certificates in BPO, customer service and accounting, which are more basic, if you like. We have BPO Certification Institute, which is a US body, and BPO itself is new, so the BPO certification body is also fairly new, about 10 years in operation, but recognized in that small industry. Apart from BPO Certifications Institute, we also have City and Guilds, which is a UK certification body, well known across the world, a UK body, and we do their customer service as well as marketing certifications. And then in terms of finance, we offer Chartered Institute of Securities and Investments, CISI, just like CIMA and SIM, the CISI is for finance. So we have them. and also for IT, British Computer Society. So these 4 certification providers are there. Depending on the interest of the student, we tell them you do this or you do that. So, and the prices also vary, and that's where the pricing is slightly different. It's not 45,000 standard. It depends on the program. So we actually offer certifications from recognized providers in the world, and also for very entry level, like 16 years old students, we do our own local certifications as well. Then they don't have to pay the exam fees in foreign currency. It's a local certification, local fees, and the fees are much lower.
Yes, sir. Just one more question.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have gone through this with them, and even I wasn't involved at the beginning. One area Lanka Angel Network is investing is more on the individual. How did you convince the directors of your in-depth knowledge? You said you had 10 years of background experience. What capacity, at what level? Just very briefly, for the purpose of the exercise.
We always went as a group, Darshana and I have been schoolmates, classmates, so we are friends for 20 plus years. So we always told investors that we are good friends, and that will give them some trust. There's no way that we would go in different directions. That's some kind of trust for them, because they can trust both of us. That's one. In terms of our backgrounds, I've worked in the IT BPO industry in companies like Virtusa in Sri Lanka. Ruvindu happens to be one of my former bosses, and then Madhu Ratnayaka has been one of my former bosses. So I've told Jeevan and them about them. So that kind of builds the credibility. Not to sell names, but if you ask Ruvindu, if you ask Madhu, they will tell who Yasas is. And then in other countries, I've worked in companies like Accenture, which happens to be the world's biggest ICT consulting firm. So with all that experience, I came into this. And then Darshana had worked for companies like Dialog, Carson's, and Haley's in Sri Lanka. And all those companies are well known, and if investors wanted to talk to his former bosses, they could. And I think Prajit knew one of his former bosses as well. So all this network worked. And Sri Lanka is a small market, so we knew each other in various capacities. We've known Jeevan, we've spoken to him in different directions. So all that worked, and towards the end, I think investors probably were confident enough to go with us.
Quick question: how many times did you have to pitch before you got funded? That's not important.
Yeah, how many times we pitched? Officially, I would think
How long did it take before you actually got funding?
In our case, I think we took about 6 months, 7 months. So you have to be ready to be in there for a long time. I think we first came to Prajit in October 2011, and to Jeevan even before that. But the actual investment happened in 2012 May, so 6, 7 or 8 months later. So in between, we would have done about 5 or 6 presentations like this in front of panels like this, and also worked individually with them as well. Whenever Prajit has questions, he would have asked Jeevan, Apurva, and different other investors. So it's a long process, and they would ask different questions, different formats, different financials, change that, change this, see if you invest this much, how would it be, if you give this much equity, what would be the scenario. So I think that's a process you would have to go through, and that actually developed our understanding about the business, because that opened our eyes into areas that we haven't thought about before, because sometimes you are questioned about things that you actually didn't think of. So in that sense, it would be a long process. I don't know what it was for other entrepreneurs, but in our case, it was a 6 month, 7 month long process, and I think it helped. At times it's frustrating because you are waiting to invest money into a certain marketing campaign, but you don't have the money and all that. But still, it was worth it in our case. Okay, so thank you for the opportunity. Thanks for listening, and if you have any questions, we are happy to talk to you.